Thank you, Dustin, for inviting me for an interview. My name is AdeelImrani, and I'm going to speak today about entrepreneurship in supply chain. Well, to begin, this topic is important because it helps startup and growing firms to tap into an untapped area for maximizing their business growth and profitability as well as customer satisfaction. Brief about me, I started my career in supply chain in Pakistan with one of the telecommunication vendors. The company was called Quality Engineering. I was taking care for warehouse and their distribution needs and in supply chain. It was good experience for me because after that I had joined the United Safety International. It is a Canadian-based oil and gas safety company. I joined their offices in Dubai. After that, I recently joined as a supply chain officer in VTB Corporation. It is a US-based hair care FMCG firm. So, including my experience in all of these various companies, I gained a diverse experience of many industries and working in key positions. And from there on, I learned the importance of entrepreneurship in supply chain, existing traditional supply chain, and sharing the same experience with you here today. So, supply chain management means that management of chains of supplies, and the purpose of supply chain management is value addition. Almost all of the firms try to make supply chains as a core competence to get competitive edge. It exists in different forms and shapes in organization, which depends on its level of integration. And the firm is influenced, for example, by supply chain management policies on firm's performance. The participants in the supply chain management of an organization have altogether different experience on performance levels. So the idea that the fundamentals of supply chains from supplier to customers can be used in an entrepreneurial mode. So it is an idea which I call an influential one. I call this emerging concept as an entrepreneurial supply chain, and I believe that companies should aggressively implement and practice it. But because it's a new concept, perhaps we need to set the stage to explain just what we mean. As an example, I would like to give an example, and I believe that this example would be surely enough for our audience to understand that what entrepreneurship in supply chain management means. So I think I will give here as an example of a company, Tesla, managed by Elon Musk, the great entrepreneur. So the example is I think that it's also important for us to reason from the first principles rather than by analogy. So what do I mean? So normally we conduct our lives is that we reason by an analogy. It's that we are doing this because it's like someone else has already been doing this, and it's like something else that was done like this, or it's like what other people are doing. So it's kind of a Me Too type ideas. And it's kind of mentally easier to reason by an analogy rather than from the first principles. But first principles is kind of physics ways to look at the world. And what that really means is that you boil things down to the most fundamental truths and say, okay, what are we sure is true or sure as possible is true? And then we reason up from there. So this takes a lot more mental energy, you know. As an example, like someone could say, and in fact, people did say to Tesla that battery packs are really expensive, and that's the way they always will be, because that's the way they have been in the past. Well, no, and that's kind of dumb, if you apply that reasoning to anything new, then you wouldn't be able to even get to that new thing. So, we can't say that horses, nobody wants a car because horses are great and we are used to them and they eat grass and there's grass all over the place, and that's not like there's no gasoline and people will not buy cars anymore. So in fact, people did say that, and for batteries, and they also said that it's going to cost a lot. Historically, I believe it was costing around $600 per kilowatt hour, and so it's not going to be much better than that. People did say that. So what would an entrepreneurial supply chain say? Not like the people who would reason by an analogy. An entrepreneurial supply chain would reason by a first principle rather than by an analogy. So what would an entrepreneurial supply chain say in terms of this battery example? So an entrepreneurial supply chain would say, no, that, so we have a problem. Batteries are expensive. So they would say that, okay, batteries, what are batteries made of, actually? So, and what's it gonna cost? Each part of the battery, what it's gonna cost? So, the first principle say that, okay, what are the material constituents of the batteries and what is the spot market value of those material constituents? And we say, okay, we got cobalt, aluminum, nickel, carbon, and some polymers for separation and steel can. So entrepreneurial supply chain would break that down on a material basis and say, if we want that on London Metal Exchange, what would each of those things cost? And people will be surprised and say, okay, it's like $80 per kilowatt hour. So clearly, we need to think of clever ways to take those materials and combine them into the shape of battery cell, and you can have a battery much cheaper than anyone realizes. So yeah. So as a final conclusion, my findings suggest that the organizational capabilities of manufacturing or FMCG, small and medium enterprises, support superior performance. The results provide empirical evidences that process a high level of, like entrepreneurial supply chain management competence perform better in their supply chain. And all of the firms and their performance is led by an entrepreneurial supply chain management competence, further preceded by strategies and performance of these business. So results are not stressed the importance of entrepreneurial competence, which perceives and explain and indicates